question. When first, one thing that the black Muslim movement did, positive, here in this country, the militancy that it projected made the black people in this country more militant than they had ever been. The whole civil rights struggle was affected by the general posture reflected or projected by the black Muslim movement. When I first came into the knowledge of the crisis within Elijah Muhammad's family in Chicago and what it would mean to the black Muslim movement if it were out, I chose myself to remain silent because not to save Elijah Muhammad, but I felt I was afraid of the psychological harm it would do his followers, plus the effect it would have on the struggle that black people are waging in this country, period. When I first left the movement, I left and took the full blame. I even made it appear that I was leaving. I never left the black Muslim movement. I was put out. And because the law in the movement is that when a person is put out, they must first be brought before the membership and given a hearing, Elijah Muhammad was afraid to bring me before the membership and give me a hearing for fear of what I might say in my own defense. So I was put in limbo, so to speak, suspended, and the Muslims in the temple here in New York were told that I would be back in 90 days. But at the same time they were being told that I would be back in 90 days, brothers were sent out by Joseph to take my life. And those brothers are with me now. The police know about it. This is a fact. And it was only after I was out of the movement, and then Elijah Muhammad began to use every pulpit in every temple in the nation to blaspheme against me, plus Muhammad Speaks newspaper, to poison the minds of his followers into thinking that I had actually committed some kind of treacherous deed against him, that I felt it necessary for me to tell his followers the real reason for which I came out of the movement. And I've been doing that ever since.
Gordon, you're a professional observer of extremist organizations, and you classify the black nationalists and, of course, the Muslims as extremist organizations. How do you appraise this political warfare that's going on in the black nationalist organization?
Well, to be perfectly frank with you, and I do believe in speaking frankly, I think at the moment the Muslims are a dying organization. They're on the way out. They've made no impact in the Negro community nationally at any point, and even less so now. Malcolm has no place to go, which is why he's floundering so badly. For example, he's been breaking bread with the communists downtown.
Wait a minute. What communists have I been
Socialist
breaking?
Workers' Party.
You are absolutely out of your mind. I have never broken bread.
You have given several speeches, which they have
that's not
reprinted.
I speak anywhere. I spoke in London, England.
You were very proud to go back several times, and they're reprinting one of your major addresses in the Militant.
I spoke in a church in Rochester a couple nights ago. Does that make me a Methodist?
We're not talking about churches. We're talking about the Socialist Workers' Party.
Just because you speak somewhere doesn't make you that. You speak to the public, and you speak on any platform.
Oh, I don't, Malcolm.
And I speak to the public, and I speak on any platform.
I'm afraid that's not the case,
If speaking on the socialist platform makes me a socialist, then when I speak in a Methodist church,
I'm a communist
platform. I was in Selma, Alabama last week speaking in Martin Luther King's church. Does that make me a follower of Martin Luther King? No, your line of reasoning, sir, doesn't fit me.
Well, I'm just saying that I was asked the question by Stan, and I think that at the moment the nationalist movement has no place to go. They're floundering, and they're putting out lines everywhere. And there is an alliance in the general Harlem area between some of the Peking-based communists, the Progressive Labor Movement, and some of the others, the Bill Epton crowd. Bill Epton is a self-confessed avowed communist. You'd agree to that, wouldn't you, Malcolm?
I know nothing about what Bill Epton's political philosophy is. Bill Epton, in my opinion, is one of the militant leaders in Harlem. Now, what his political beliefs are, I think that he has a right to them.
I didn't say he didn't have a right. I'm just saying what he is.
Well,
and he has stated to me
whatever
personally.
they are,
I've interviewed him. He told me he's an avowed communist.
So, whatever they are, he has a right to them.
He'd like to see the system of ours completely junked as well. All I'm saying is that there's a lot of warfare.
I think you'll find that a lot of the children that are out there in Brooklyn are on the rampage against the segregated school system here in New York City.
May I speak?
And King and some of his followers in Alabama right now who are fighting against the same system.
But you don't let other people speak, Malcolm.
Well, they're your words.
I'm trying to. You would be kind enough to let me speak.
Go right ahead, Mr. Hall.
Well, at any rate, they're floundering now, and there's a lot of internecine warfare going on in the Harlem section, and most of the movements are small and splintered, and there are splinters of splinters, and I suppose only the future will tell which one will emerge victorious and perhaps claim the most members. I would make a prediction, and I think we could come back a year from now, Stan, and I think you may find Malcolm preaching a completely separate doctrine of leading some other kind of a movement.
Well, you know, one of the best compliments that Dr. Hall here can pay me is just the things that he says. When he begins to pat me on the back, I'll be worried.
Well, I'm not patting you on the back.
When a person-
I told you
I
up
said-
in
I
Boston
said- I
that
said when you
give a little
begin-
time and you'll be preaching a new line,
I
and you
said,
are.
when you begin to pat me on the back, I'll be worried. When you begin, people of your profession, who make a profession out of dealing with groups in this country, when you begin to pat me on the back, then I'll be worried, sir. Now, I would advise you, if you think that nationalism has no influence whatsoever, the Nationalists, the Organization of Afro-American Unity, are having a rally at the Audubon Ballroom on Broadway.
You mentioned it earlier. You're getting in a couple of
I'm
good
going to
free
mention
plugs.
it again, that I wouldn't come on the program and not mention it, because one of the most difficult things for nationalists to do is to let the public know what they're doing. So we're having this rally at the
I know the
Audubon.
public is engaged in a vast conspiracy against you. It's
You're going to
obvious
make
from
me
what
mention
you're
it 4 or
saying.
5 times. We're having this rally. We're having this rally at the Audubon Ballroom this coming Sunday at 2:00, and people just like you who consider themselves experts on nationalists are given front seat invitations. And I would advise you, since it's your profession to know what nationalists and other so-called extremists are doing, to come and be our guest. Now, one thing I'd like to point out too, Dr. Hall. Whenever you find
You
black...
know perfectly well I'm not a doctor, Malcolm. so
Well,
it's
you
good
sound
to
like
come
an
on, right?
expert on something. I thought you were a doctor. Whenever you find the condition that black people are confronted by in this country, being permitted by the government to exist so long, the condition in itself is extreme. And any black man who really feels about this situation that our people are confronted by, his feelings are extreme. You can't take a cough syrup and cure somebody who has pneumonia. And the black people are becoming more extreme every day. I was in Alabama a couple of weeks ago before I went to England, down there with Dr. King and some of the others who are trying to just register and vote. Now, I'll tell you frankly, with King is supposed to be the most moderate, most conservative, most loving, most endorsed, most supported.
Now, the word is responsible, but go ahead.
Okay, responsible to the white power structure. To me, when white people talk about responsible,
He's a responsible American. That's what he is.
when people like you usually refer to Negroes as responsible, you mean Negroes who are responsible in the context of your type of thinking. So, getting right back to Dr. King, anytime you find a person who goes along with the government to the degree that Dr. King does, and still Dr. King's followers, children, are made to run down the road by brute policemen who are nothing but Klansmen, and the federal government can step in and do nothing about it, I will guarantee you that you are producing extremists by the thousands. Now, when I was down there, they wanted me to speak to the press, but didn't want me to speak to the church, or the children, or the students.
Let me ask
And
you,
it was
Malcolm.
the students themselves that insisted that I speak that gave me the opportunity
Malcolm,
to speak.
how do you think that's going to be changed?
Sir,
How? I mean, no, I know you're talking about these children being made into extremists, but how is that situation going to be changed? Do you
Not-
think by warfare?
It's not going to be changed by making believe that it doesn't exist to the intense degree that it exists, and it's not going to be changed by putting out polls like Newsweek magazine did last week, implying that Negroes are satisfied with the rate of progress. This is deluding yourself. And my contention is that white people do themselves a disservice by putting out these kind of things to make it appear that Negroes are satisfied when the most explosive situation racially that has ever existed in this country exists right now. And all of your so-called responsible leaders, when they speak about the situation, they say everything is in check. Yet every day you find Negro children becoming more explosive than they've ever been before.
You're not answering my question. You're avoiding it. I asked you, how is it going to change? Is it going to change through extreme behavior? Let's call it extreme reaction. In other words, you are going to react extremely to a situation that you don't like. Now, how extreme can your reaction be?
Well, sir, when Russia put missiles in Cuba, the only thing that made Russia get her missiles out of Cuba was when America pointed missiles right back at Russia.
Are you suggesting revolution?
I'm saying this, that when you respect the intelligence of black people in this country as being equal to that of whites, then you will realize that the reaction of the black man to oppression will be the same as the reaction of the white man to oppression. The white man will not turn the other cheek when he's being oppressed. He will not practice any kind of love of a Klan or a citizen council or anyone else. But at the same time, the white man is asking the black man to do this. So all I'm saying is, I absolutely believe the situation can be changed. But I don't think it can be changed by white people taking a hypocritical approach pretending that it is not as bad as it is, and by black leaders, so-called responsible leaders, taking a hypocritical approach, trying to make white people think that black people are patient and long-suffering and are willing to sit around here a long time or a great deal of time longer until the problem is made better.
More words, and he began by saying that he has to confess that he was responsible for misleading so many people on the Muslim count. There were never very many Muslims. Let's always come back to the fact that not very many people were ever misled. The white press was misled into believing there were a lot of Muslims.
Dr. Hall.
There were never more than 15,000 Muslims in America, and there are only now 6,000, and we have 22 million Negroes in the United States. Keep these facts uppermost in one's mind.
Well, you admitted this at the very beginning, Malcolm. You said the 15,000 figure is correct.
Here's another fact.
These are facts, Malcolm.
Here's another fact you have to keep in mind. There never were many Mau Mau. There never were. There were always more Kikuyu, more Kenyans than Mau Mau.
And what is this supposed to prove?
But it was the Mau Mau who brought independence to Kenya.
Yes, but
and the man who was regarded as an extremist and a monster just 5 years ago, Jomo Kenyatta, is the president of the Republic of Kenya today. And it is this same man who 5 years ago...
The situation in colonial Africa is not like it is in the United States.
Well, this is colonial. Anytime you have a system in 1965 that will take children and let them be marched down the road by not criminal elements.
In numbers, you have to draw one big analogy. In the United States, the Negro is still the minority in the United States. And when you're talking about minorities within minorities, you start boiling it all down. You can't really draw that analogy of a colony.
I say this, that the Mau Mau was also a minority, a microscopic minority, but it was the Mau Mau who not only brought independence to Kenya,
within a vast Negro majority.
But it but it's still that wick. The powder keg is always larger than the wick. The smallest thing in the powder keg is the wick. You can touch the powder all day long and nothing happens. It's the wick that you touch that sets the powder off.
I think it'll blow up.
It's the wick that you touch that sets the powder off. And if you go here in Harlem and you take all these moderate Negroes that Dr. Hall here puts the stamp of approval on and regards them as responsible, they don't explode. It's the wick. It's that small element that you refer to as nationalists and other...
You're doing all you can to encourage it, Malcolm.
Not encourage
with your inflammatory and demagogic language.
I don't encourage it, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it doesn't exist.
Don't you incite, Malcolm?
I don't think so. I don't. How are you going to incite people who are living in slums and ghetto? It's the city structure that incites. A city that continues to let people live in rat nest dens in Harlem and pay higher rent in Harlem than they pay downtown. This is what incites it. Who lets merchants outcharge or overcharge people for their groceries and their clothing and other commodities in Harlem while you pay lesser for it downtown. This is what incites it. A city that will not create some kind of employment for people who are barred from having jobs just because their skin is black. That's what incites it. Don't ever accuse a black man for voicing his resentment and dissatisfaction over the criminal condition of his people as being responsible for inciting a situation. You have to indict the society that allows these things to exist. And this is where I differ with Dr. Hall.
Well, we differ in many places, Malcolm.
This is one of the many places, Dr. Hall, where we differ.
Well, in a sense, didn't Hitler also talk about different points of view? Didn't he say that conditions existed, and didn't he also incite people?
Well, I don't know anything about Hitler. I wasn't in Germany. I'm in America.
Don't please.
I say I wasn't in. I say I don't know anything about Hitler. I wasn't in Germany, but I have.
You know about Hitler.
Well,
though.
You can't point to Hitler and Germany behind what's going on here in America. Turn on the television tonight and see what they're doing. No. Turn on the television tonight and see what they're doing with Dr. King. Mm-hmm. Turn on. No, this is
Dr. King's methods are not yours.
Dr. King goes along.
You couldn't do in Alabama what he is doing,
sir.
You could not do in Alabama.
You better pray that I don't go and try and do what he's doing. Anytime Dr. King,
these are just
anytime Dr. King goes along with people like you, you should put forth more effort to keep him out of jail. You should put forth more effort to protect him. And you should put forth more effort to protect the people who go along with him and display this love and this patience. If you would do more for those people and spend some of your time trying to help those people instead of trying to attack me, probably this country would be a much better place in which to live. You spend too much of your time, Doctor, trying to investigate.
I rarely ever mention you, Malcolm. You're hardly worth mentioning.
You spend too much of your time, Doctor, running around trying to keep track of dissatisfied black people whom you label as extremists.
Hardly.
Whereas if you would spend some of your time in these places where Dr. King is fighting, then you would make this country a better place to live in.
Malcolm, I lectured all over the state of Alabama when you had nothing to do with the Muslims.
Did you
or
have on a white
anybody
sheet?
else.
Did you have on a white sheet?
See what I named?
Gentlemen, time.